Beep. The day begins with a sharp, mechanical signal. Meet Korea, an ordinary student living in the nation of Argania. But in this world, ordinary is a status you have to earn every single day. Every action is monitored. Completing math homework? Plus 30 points. Going to bed on time? Plus 50. To Korea, these aren't just numbers. They're his lifeline. One slip up, and his entire life could crumble. Even at home, there's no escape from the pressure. His mother reminds him that his behavior affects their social trust. In this society, your worth is literally worn around your neck. Korea currently holds a C rank, and he knows he can't afford to let it drop. I'll behave properly at school, Korea promises. He even takes a photo of his breakfast, another tiny act of compliance to show he's living a healthy, standardized life. The system, known as Lowell, demands total transparency. As he steps outside, the city greets him with propaganda. Loudspeakers blare music and inspirational messages about the light of Lowell. Korea ignores the noise, his eyes fixed forward, trying his best to just blend in. The scale of the control is breathtaking. A colossal statue of the leader, Lowell, towers over the skyline, watching every citizen. In Argania, privacy is a relic of the past, and the state's eyes are everywhere. Korea puts on his earphones, a small, desperate attempt to create a private world for himself amidst the constant surveillance. For a brief moment, he lets out a faint smile, the only part of him the cameras can't fully decipher. At the school gates, the monitoring intensifies. CCTV cameras track his arrival, scanning his C rank choker. Every beep is a reminder that his freedom is conditional, dependent on his daily score. He's joined by his friend Mac, a student with a B rank choker. In this hierarchy, even friendship is filtered through social status. Mac warns Korea that quitting the basketball club could negatively affect his standing. Mac is the perfect citizen, or so it seems. He volunteers to pick up trash and donates blood regularly, all to maintain his superior B rank. He encourages Korea to do the same, preaching the gospel of the system. It's better to smile, Mac says with a cheerful, yet hollow expression. He makes it sound simple, but Korea can see the hidden threat behind the words. In Argania, a grumpy face isn't just a mood, it's a liability. Mac leans in, reminding Korea of the ultimate goal, reaching that coveted B rank. The gap between a C and a B is the difference between surviving and actually living. Korea listens, his face a mask of compliance. Inside the classroom, the indoctrination continues. The teacher praises the Lowell system for protecting them from heretics and terrorism. To these students, the leader isn't just a politician, he's their savior. When the teacher asks what a heretic is, Mac is the first to raise his hand. He recites the state-approved definition perfectly. Heretics are secret plotters, enemies of the people who must be stopped. Mac's answer is chillingly specific. He lists the signs of a heretic. They hate the state, they eat unhealthy food at night, and they prefer crude music and art. Anything that isn't standardized is considered a threat. Heretics are dangerous. They must be strictly regulated, Mac concludes. Korea sits silently, resting his head on his hand. He's heard this lecture 1,000 times, yet the weight of it never gets lighter. The class erupts in applause for Mac's magnificent answer. But Korea is distracted, scribbling something in his notebook. The teacher notices and sharply tells him to stop. In this room, even a wandering mind is a sign of trouble. During the break, Korea and Mac retreat to the emergency stairs, the only place in the school without cameras. Korea reveals what he was drawing, a satirical cartoon of the teacher as a mechanical nut hunter. It's a small, dangerous act of defiance. Mac laughs, but it's a nervous sound. He tells Korea that the teacher is planning to dump water on anyone with a D rank or lower during cleaning time. Korea tries to play it off, but the tension in the air is palpable. Then, Mac reveals a shocking truth. He pulls back his collar to show his choker. The B has been replaced by a D. His social trust has plummeted, and with it, his access to basic services like hospitals and libraries. "What did you do?" Korea asks, stunned. Mac shows him the notification on his screen. Minus 500 points for viewing harmful content. It turns out Mac's father had a sci-fi novel about people with supernatural powers, espers. Mac is terrified. He doesn't even know how he was caught. In Argania, reading a story about supernatural powers is a high-level crime because it encourages the idea of individuals being stronger than the state. Were there deaths in the story? Korea asks. Mac nods. The definition of acceptable content is narrowing every day. Mac mentions that his father was already sent to a detention camp for similar reasons. The system doesn't just punish the individual, it erases the entire family. Korea looks at Reichel, feeling a rare sense of empathy for his friend's plight. He wonders why no one else feels the crushing weight of their situation. To him, the heretics aren't the strange ones. It's the normal people who have learned to love their own chains. Reichel warns him to stay cautious, admitting that he avoids the internet as much as possible to stay under the radar. But in Argania, even your own bedroom isn't a guaranteed sanctuary. As the heavy silence of the stairwell lingers, the reality of their fragile existence sinks in, leaving them to cling to the only thing the system hasn't yet broken, their bond. Reichel teases Korea, noticing how quickly he turns red when certain topics come up. Despite the heavy atmosphere of Argania, these brief moments of friendship are the only things that feel real to Korea. You never seem to grow up, do you? Reichel jokes, unaware of how quickly their world is about to change. They look out over the city, where the giant statue of Lowell has stood for 4 years. Reichel muses about how much the world is changing under the supreme leader's rule. Korea stays quiet, his eyes fixed on the towering figure that symbolizes their oppression. Just who is this Lowell, he wonders, his mind filled with questions no one dares to ask. Behind Reichel's back, Korea raises a single finger toward the statue, a silent, defiant gesture against the godlike figure and the system it represents. It's a small act of rebellion, hidden away in the shadows of the emergency stairs. Reichel catches him and panics, warning Korea not to risk it, even if there are no cameras. In Argania, even a joke can lead to a drop in social trust. Reichel's fear is a testament to the system's power. The fear of being watched is just as effective as the watching itself. Suddenly, an urgent announcement blares through the school speakers. Reichel is summoned to the front gate immediately. The mechanical voice is cold and final, leaving no room for questions or delay. Reichel leaves with a look of confusion and dread, promising to return. But as the school day goes on, his seat remains empty. Reichel did not return to class that day, or ever again. He has become another victim of the system's cleaning process. As Korea leaves school, he witnesses the brutal hierarchy of the social trust system in action. A group of rank B students are bullying a rank E girl named Tsubaki, pulling her hair and mocking her low status. In Argania, your rank determines not just your life, but how others are allowed to treat you. Oppressing the E is for the benefit of the people of Argania. That's the official state doctrine. Tsubaki, with her blonde hair and rank cloak, is considered the bottom of society, someone whose very existence is a warning to others. Korea watches from the side, knowing he can't intervene without risking his own rank. The system is designed to isolate the low-ranked. Even the families of heretics or rank E citizens have their own scores dropped. If Korea were to help Tsubaki, his own mother's rank would plummet as well. The state uses love and family as the ultimate tools of control. When Korea returns home, his mother greets him with the usual mechanical kindness. She's watching a movie on TV, one they've likely seen many times. In their world, even home life is a series of proper responses designed to keep the social trust score stable. Have you gotten taller? His mother asks. Korea remains distant, his eyes fixed on the screen. The normalcy of their conversation feels hollow, a fragile facade covering the fear that dictates every aspect of their lives. Because internet content is strictly censored and monitored, Korea and his mother watch the same old DVDs over and over again. It's the only way to experience stories without the government's constant editing. Their world has been stripped of new ideas, leaving them in a loop of the past. Alone in his room, Korea pulls out a hidden notebook. It's filled with sketches that the state would label as heretical, images of wings, skulls, and dark, brooding figures. This is his only outlet for the feelings he must otherwise suppress. The state teaches that heretics prefer extreme depictions such as blood and violence. As Korea looks at his drawing of a woman weeping blood in a pond of skulls, he realizes how far he has drifted from the state's ideal of a good citizen. He is already a heretic in his heart. His phone buzzes with a notification. His lack of club participation is threatening his C rank. He's warned that unless he joins a club or becomes a top 5% student, he'll be deducted 250 points. The system is always pushing, always demanding more useful activity. As he works on his schoolwork, the word obey flashes through his mind like a command. It's the background noise of his entire existence, a constant pressure to conform, to follow the rules, and to never, ever question why. Korea continues to doodle, his pen moving instinctively to create the forbidden images. He's bored, frustrated, and tired of the constant act. He sticks his tongue out at the work, a tiny moment of childish rebellion against the crushing weight of Argania. Every scratch of the pen on paper feels like a secret. Korea has stacks of these notebooks, a private history of his own descent. He knows that if these were ever found, his life would be over in an instant. The next morning, his mother sees him off at the door. She worries about him, reminding him to listen to his teacher and to come straight home. In this world, a detour isn't just a change of path. It's a suspicious activity that could lead to an investigation. "I'm worried about you," she says softly. She mentions his father, hinting that he was also someone who struggled with the rules. Korea's face remains cold, his silence a shield against her concern. He hates the fear in her eyes, a fear that has become his constant companion. Korea snaps at her, telling her to stop lecturing him. He knows she's only trying to protect him, but her constant vigilance feels like another form of the system's control. "I understand," he shouts, wanting only to escape the suffocating air of their home. Despite his anger, Korea feels the weight of her words. He walks away, his head down, the image of his mother's worried face etched into his mind. He knows that in Argania, being safe means being invisible, and he's not sure how much longer he can stay that way. Korea remembers Reichel from the day before, just before he was taken. Reichel had a serious expression, far different from his usual cheerful self. It was as if he knew something was coming, a premonition of his own disappearance. Reichel had found Korea's notebook and was looking at the mechanical nut hunter drawing, the caricature of their teacher. "What is this?" he had asked, his voice filled with a mix of amusement and concern. "Are you making fun of our teacher, Korea?" Reichel asked, looking at his friend with a new sense of curiosity. It was one of the last normal conversations they ever had, a moment of shared secret before the darkness of the system claimed one of them. In a world built on survival, even friendship is a luxury Korea can no longer afford. Reichel, the friend he thought he could trust, stands before the class and holds up Korea's sketchbook. "Everyone look," he shouts, exposing the mechanical nut hunter caricature to the authorities. Korea is frozen, unable to believe the betrayal unfolding before his eyes. Reichel's eyes are cold, devoid of the warmth they held just moments ago. He accuses Korea of making a mockery of the teacher, the very person working for the sake of Argania. Korea watches his friend, realize that the system hasn't just taken Reichel's rank, it has taken his soul. "What's gotten into you, Reichel?" He whispers, but there is no answer. "I'm going to report this," Reichel announces, his voice steady as he walks away to seal Korea's fate. The rest of the class watches in a stunned silence that quickly turns into hushed whispers. Korea stands alone in the center of the room, the weight of the social trust system finally crushing the small island of safety he had tried to build. Korea walks home through the hollow streets of Argania, the city's grand architecture feeling like the walls of a prison. The sky is dark, matching the storm brewing in his chest. Everything he did, every rule he followed, was to keep his mother safe. Now, because of one drawing and one friend, everything is at risk. His phone beeps, a sound he has learned to dread. A notification confirms his fears, minus 150 points for lack of respect for teachers. His social trust, once a stable C, is bleeding out. He thinks back to when Reichel was a B, a rank that seemed so secure until the system decided otherwise. The message is clear: no one is safe. Korea wipes a tear from his eye, a rare show of emotion he quickly suppresses. He remembers a time when things were simpler, when he and Reichel could play together without the weight of chokers around their necks. He resolves to go home and apologize to his mother for his outburst earlier that morning. He needs her now more than ever. It will only worry her, he thinks, deciding to keep the betrayal a secret for now. He just wants to see her face, to hear her voice, and to apologize for the distance he's kept between them. He walks faster, his heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and a desperate need for the only comfort he has left. But the home Korea returns to is no longer his. He opens the door to find two strangers standing in his living room, a man with sharp glasses and a stout woman, both wearing the chokers of high-ranking citizens. Starting today, the man says with a chillingly calm smile, "We are your parents." Korea is speechless, his mind unable to process the nightmare. The woman explains with terrifying politeness that his former mother was reported for suspicious activity and sent to an education center. Detention camp is an inappropriate term. The man corrects, his voice like ice. She'll return after being educated. But Korea knows the truth. No one ever comes back. What suspicious activity? Korea demands, his voice trembling with rage. But the strangers don't answer. They don't have to. In Argania, the accusation is the verdict. He looks at them, his eyes wide with horror, realizing that his mother has been erased from his life as easily as a line of code. The man adjusts his glasses, dismissively stating they don't know the specifics. "We are your parents now," he repeats, as if it's a simple administrative change. Behind them, Korea sees the familiar walls of his home, now occupied by monsters wearing the masks of family. The erasure is total. The replacement is immediate. The intrusion is even more physical than he thought. They've already installed a surveillance camera right there in the living room, its black lens staring at him like the eye of Lowell itself. The privacy of his home, the last sanctuary he had, has been violated. He is never truly alone, and he is never truly safe. Korea forces himself to remain calm, his C-rank choker a constant reminder of the price of rebellion. "I understand," he says, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. He thinks of his mother, wondering where she is and if she's scared, but he knows he must play the part of the good son to survive this new nightmare. "Excellent," the man says, pleased with Korea's immediate submission. They invite him to have dinner, moving through the kitchen with a practiced ease that makes Korea sick. They talk about the evening as if they haven't just destroyed a boy's entire world. In Argania, the state provides everything, even your family. The surveillance goes far beyond cameras. Every purchase Korea makes is tracked through his ID, allowing the government to monitor his every move. Even a horror movie he watched with his mother is now being analyzed. Was she drinking more than usual? Was it an unhealthy diet? The system searches for any harmful effects on the mind to justify its cruelty. Korea feels a deep, soul-crushing confusion. "I don't know," he thinks, his head bowed. He has no idea how they're being judged or what criteria the system uses to decide who stays and who is re-educated. In this world, the rules are absolute, but the logic is a mystery. Only one thing is certain: you're always being watched. He walks through the city, the word "obey" ringing in his ears and appearing in the very atmosphere of Argania. Even his music isn't a refuge. His streaming is paused because the lyrics contain explicit language. The state controls what he sees, what he hears, and what he is allowed to feel. Every part of his identity is being pruned to fit the government's design. Korea clenches his earphones in his hand, a silent gesture of frustration. He knows that in this society, people will falsely report others just to boost their own social trust scores. It's a world where betrayal is encouraged, and trust is a dangerous weakness. There's no reason, he realizes, it's just survival. The city itself is a shrine to Lowell. Slogans like "The heart of Lowell is one," and "I shall follow your guidance" are etched into the very skyline. The massive statue of the leader towers over everything, its shadow long and cold. Korea is a tiny, insignificant speck in the face of this monolithic power, a boy lost in a forest of steel and propaganda. "I shall obey your words," the city seems to whisper back to him. Korea keeps his head down, his backpack heavy with the weight of a life that has been stolen. He has learned the hardest lesson of Argania. Your world can vanish in an instant, replaced by a perfect, sterile nightmare. In a sudden burst of silent fury, Korea's boot comes down on a small object, crushing it into the pavement. Crack. It's a tiny, insignificant act, but for Korea, it's a release of the pressure building inside him. He can't fight the state, but he can destroy this one small thing. The scene shifts to a different time, a memory of a family dinner that now feels like a dream from another life. The surveillance cameras, the loudspeakers, and the constant threat of Lowell were always there, but back then, at least he had his mother. Now, even the dinner table is a site of government observation. Korea remembers being in class, his C rank displayed on a screen for everyone to see. He watches as other students are singled out, their ranks fluctuating based on the smallest actions. He sees Reichel from a distance, the boy who would eventually betray him, and wonders if the seed of that betrayal was already there. The finality of his loss hits Korea when he sees the garbage truck. Tied together like worthless scrap, his old notebooks, filled with the satirical sketches and forbidden wings that were the only real parts of him, are hauled away to be incinerated. As he watches his past being disposed of, he realizes that in Argania, your identity can be erased just as easily as a low score. Korea turns away, a solitary ghost in the sterile streets. He has no mother, no friends, and his memories have been labeled as hazardous waste. With nothing left to lose, he prepares to return to the house that is no longer a home, ready to play the part the system demands. The light of Lowell shines on everything, but for Korea, the real work of survival is just beginning. Life with his new parents is a hollow ritual of compliance. Korea watches from the window as they clean the street outside, another performative act of volunteerism to maintain their status. In Argania, even the act of picking up trash is a calculated move in the game of social trust. Back in his room, Korea puts on the mask of the perfect citizen. He studies, he obeys, and he waits. Every movement is a performance for the camera in the corner, a silent promise to the state that he has been corrected. He sees his parents return, their faces fixed in the same plastic smiles. They go about their day as if the boy they've replaced isn't sitting right there, his true life buried under a mountain of government-approved paperwork. Korea continues to study, his expression unreadable. A beep from his phone brings a small, bitter irony. "Oh, I'm almost a bee," he thinks. By following every rule and erasing his true self, he has nearly reached the rank he once envied. But what does a rank be worth when it's built on the bones of your family? Korea finds himself in a quiet, snow-covered park. The world is white and still, a rare moment of peace in the mechanical heart of the city. He stands alone, the cold air a sharp contrast to the suffocating heat of the school and his house. The snow settles on the trees, blurring the edges of the urban prison. For a moment, Argania looks beautiful, its harsh lines softened by the winter. But Korea knows the truth. Beneath the white blanket, the same cameras are watching, and the same rules still apply. Memories of his childhood flood back, images of him drawing at a table with his real mother and father. They were a family once, before the system tore them apart. He sees his younger self, a boy who could draw whatever he wanted without fear. Now, even those memories feel like a crime. The silence of the park is shattered by the sound of cruel laughter. Korea looks up to see a group of rank B students, their high-status chokers gleaming against the snow. They found a target, and they're enjoying the opportunity to exercise their rights. It landed. One of the boys shouts gleefully. They're throwing snowballs at Tsubaki, the rank E girl he saw being bullied at school. In Argania, rank E citizens are considered subhuman, legal targets for anyone with a higher score to vent their frustrations on. Let's have a competition to see who can land more hits, the lead bully suggests. They treat Tsubaki like a piece of carnival equipment, laughing as she flinches from each impact. Kiriya watches from the side, the familiar weight of the system's injustice pressing down on him. One of the snowballs hits Tsubaki with a sickening thud. She collapses, her long blonde hair falling over her face. A dark stain begins to spread across the snow near her head. The boys have started putting stones in their snowballs to make the game more interesting. Tsubaki bleeds from a wound on her forehead, her rank E cloak tattered and wet. The bullies don't even pause. That was you, one boy says, pointing at another, as if they're arguing over points in a sports game. To them, her pain is just a metric of their own success. Kiriya steps forward, his presence finally noticed by the group. They turn to him, their expressions shifting from amusement to annoyance. If it isn't Kiriya, the lead bully says, his voice dripping with condescension. They see a C-rank choker and immediately dismiss him. You're AC, aren't you? You think it's okay to stand up to us? They mock. They remind him of the stakes. If they report him for interfering, his rank and the rank of his family will be dropped to E. They think they have him trapped in the same web of fear that controls everyone else. I'm finished, Kiriya says, his voice low and dangerous. He looks the lead bully in the eye, a cold smile touching his lips. I don't have a family anymore, he reveals, the weight of his mother's erasure finally bursting through his mask of compliance. Like I care. The bullies are momentarily confused. They try to return to their mockery of Tsubaki, saying she isn't even human anymore because of her rank. Her appearance is her only redeeming factor, one says with a sneer. Are you in love with her, Kiriya? Kiriya's head drops, his hair casting a shadow over his eyes. Shut the hell up, he whispers. The hell is wrong with you people? Kiriya shouts, his rage finally boiling over. He spent his whole life trying to be invisible, trying to be good, and all it got him was a missing mother and a front row seat to this cruelty. You make me sick, he screams, his voice echoing through the park. This is messed up, isn't it? One of the boys prepares to kick Kiriya, his boots swinging with casual violence. Tsubaki watches, her eyes wide with a strange, detached curiosity. Kiriya flinches, expecting the blow, but something inside him is changing. A pressure he's never felt before is rising from the depths of his being. The bullies surround him, their silhouettes dark against the winter sky. They are the representatives of Argania, the perfect citizens the system has created. To Kiriya, they're nothing more than monsters in uniform. The tension in the air is unbearable, a coiled spring waiting to snap. They laugh as Kiriya clutches his head, the pressure becoming a physical pain. They have no idea what they've awakened. In their arrogance, they think they're just disciplining a lower-ranked student. They don't see the fire beginning to burn in Kiriya's eyes. Damn it, Kiriya snarls, his vision blurring with tears of frustration and hate. He questions the very foundation of their world. Why are their lives dictated by a stranger they've never seen? Why do they follow evaluation criteria they know nothing about? The absurdity of their existence has finally pushed him over the edge. The world around Kiriya seems to warp and distort. He looks up at the lead bully, his eyes fixed with a terrifying intensity. Why is it like this? He asks, not just to the boys, but to the entire world of Argania. The pressure inside him reaches its breaking point. Then it happens. A sudden, sickening sound fills the park. The lead bully's face begins to ripple and swell, his eyes bulging as if from an internal explosion. Kiriya watches with a cold, terrifying detachment as the system's most loyal follower begins to literally fall apart. Then, the unthinkable happens in a horrific burst of gore. The boy's head is pulverized from within, spraying blood and bone through the frozen air and painting the pristine snow a violent, dark red. It is a moment of absolute, terrifying power, An awakening Argania has spent decades trying to suppress, where Korea finally writes his own evaluation criteria. A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the park. The remaining bullies stand paralyzed, their faces splattered with the warm remains of their leader. They are speechless, their minds unable to process a horror they were never taught to fear. Amidst the carnage, Korea stands with eyes glowing. The good citizen is gone, and a silent predator has taken his place. The snowy park has become a stage for a nightmare. The remaining bullies watch, their faces twisted in a grotesque parody of fear, as the headless body of their leader slumps into the crimson snow. Korea stands frozen, the energy of his awakening still crackling in the air, a silent predator born from the ashes of a good citizen. A close-up reveals the sheer horror in the eyes of the survivors. Their high-status chokers, once symbols of their absolute authority, now look like nothing more than expensive collars on frightened animals. The pristine white world of Argania has been shattered by a single, violent truth. Korea looks down, his vision blurred by a mixture of shock and a strange, cold clarity. He sees the body before him, the life extinguished in an instant. Beside him, Tsubaki watches with a calm that is more terrifying than any scream. The mask of the rank C student has finally fallen, revealing the monster underneath. Korea stands over the carnage, the blood painting his boots. The world around him is silent, as if Argania itself is holding its breath. He has crossed a line from which there is no return, a journey that began with a missing mother and ended in this red graveyard. "What is this?" Korea whispers, his voice trembling as he stares at his own hands. Tsubaki approaches him, her long blonde hair caught in the winter wind. She doesn't flinch at the blood or the bodies. Instead, she looks at him with a sense of recognition. "We have to," she begins, her voice as steady as a surgeon's. "Dispose of the corpses," Tsubaki says, her words cutting through Korea's shock like a blade. She looks at the remains with a detached efficiency, as if she's done this 1,000 times before. In the world of Argania, where everything is tracked, a body is a loose thread that must be cut. She points out the dark irony. The bullies chose this spot specifically because it has no surveillance cameras. They wanted to hide their cruelty, she says, but now they've hidden their own deaths. She instructs Korea to cover up the blood, her cold logic a lifeline in the middle of the chaos. She knows that even a rank E like her can survive if she knows where the system isn't looking. Tsubaki looks directly into Korea's eyes, her expression unreadable. "That was your power," she says, forcing him to face the reality of what he's become. "This happened because of you." She doesn't offer comfort or excuses. She offers the cold, hard truth of his new identity. "You killed them," she concludes. In another horrific burst of energy, the heads of the remaining bullies explode, their lives extinguished before they could even beg for mercy. The park is now a silence of the dead, and Korea is the author of its final chapter. He has become the very thing the state warned him about, a heretic with the power of an esper. A massive swirl of snow and energy erupts as Korea's power reaches its peak and then begins to fade. The park is transformed into a vortex of white and red, a symbolic storm that marks the end of Korea's old life. He and Tsubaki stand at the eye of the storm, two ghosts in a dying world. In the aftermath, Korea remembers Reichel's words about the sci-fi novel. It was about espers with telekinesis, that sort of supernatural powers. He realizes now that the fiction his friend was arrested for was a truth the government was desperate to suppress. The bodies of the bullies lie scattered in the snow, a grim confirmation that the state's biggest fear has finally come true. Korea and Tsubaki walk away from the carnage, their silhouettes small against the vast, dark forest. The city lights of Argania glow in the distance, a reminder of the monolithic power they have just defied. They are now outcasts, two heretics moving through the shadows of a world that wants them erased. Tsubaki talks as they walk, her voice a low murmur against the sound of the wind. She tells him to be aware of the cameras and to think of a route home that avoids the increasing surveillance. Why are you so? Kiriya starts, confused by her knowledge and her calm. She lists the tools of their oppression: social trust, education centers, the endless cameras. She has lived in the cracks of the system for a long time. Apparently, in this world, there are secrets, Tsubaki muses, her profile sharp against the snow. She talks about the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface of Argania. Kiriya listens, his face a mask of exhaustion and newfound purpose. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter, he thinks, realizing that his life in the system ended the moment he set foot in that park. Tsubaki stops and turns to him, her eyes dark and intense. Hey, Kiriya, she says, her voice suddenly heavy with weight. She tells him that Lowell, the supreme leader, is scared of them, scared of the heretics who can't be controlled by scores or cameras. Kiriya looks back at her, the realization of his new reality sinking in. They aren't just survivors, they are weapons. The chapter reaches its chilling climax as Tsubaki makes her final offer. She looks at the blood on her face, a grim war paint for the battle to come. Let's, she begins, her eyes locking onto his with a terrifying, absolute certainty. Kill Lowell together. The world of Break New World has just become a battlefield, and the revolution has its first 2 soldiers. In the quiet, falling snow, Tsubaki drops a bombshell that changes everything. She isn't just looking for a friend. She wants a partner in crime. Her proposal? For the 2 of them to team up and assassinate the supreme leader himself, Lowell. Kiriya is left speechless, his mind racing to process the sheer insanity of what he just heard. Too many things have happened in such a short time, and the weight of this secret is already starting to press down on him. Tsubaki leans in, her voice low and commanding. She warns him to keep their meeting a complete secret, even from those closest to him. The pact has been made, but for now, they must part ways and act like strangers. She gives him specific, cryptic instructions for their next meeting at a general store called Lenina. She insists he takes a back route, turns off his phone, and even removes the battery to avoid any chance of being tracked by the state. With a cold bite and a final order not to talk to her at school, Tsubaki disappears into the night. Kiriya is left standing alone in the cold city, his life now tethered to a dangerous revolution. When Kiriya finally makes it home, he's greeted by his mother's worried face. In this world, being late isn't just a minor mistake. It's a suspicious behavior that can lower your rank or worse. Kiriya can only offer a quiet apology. His mother's gaze is intense as she demands to know the reason for his delay. Kiriya tries to play it off as a simple walk to enjoy the snow. But in Argania, even admiring the view is seen as a deviation from the rules. She lectures him about the dangers of straying from designated routes, warning him about the risk of assault. Or perhaps, she's more afraid of the state than any street thug. Kiriya nods, hiding his growing frustration behind a mask of obedience. Dinner is a quiet affair, but the tension remains. His mother's smile feels strained, a performance of normalcy in a home shadowed by a photo of his missing father, another victim of this perfect system. The next day at school, the atmosphere is just as suffocating. Kiriya walks through the halls, a ghost among students who are all too busy trying to maintain their own social ranks to notice his turmoil. He passes by his classmates' desks, where the hierarchy is visible in every interaction. In Argania, your rank determines your humanity, and, for those at the bottom, the school is just a smaller version of the prison outside. Kiriya catches sight of Tsubaki sitting at her desk, looking bored and indifferent. Her head is bandaged, a stark reminder of the violence they've already shared. Yet here, under the bright lights of the classroom, she seems like a different person. Dark thoughts haunt Kiriya as he looks at her. He feels the guilt of their secret alliance, imagining Tsubaki's voice blaming him for the deaths that have already paved their path. To her, it's simple. He's a killer now. After school, Kiriya follows Tsubaki's trail through the snowy Tich. He arrives at the Lenina General Store, a derelict building that seems to have been forgotten by time and the city's meticulous maintenance. Inside, the place is a mess, far from the functional stores Kiriya is used to. He stands there, wary and out of place, waiting for the girl who holds the key to his new life. Tsubaki is already there, lounging in the ruins. She explains that this place is a blind spot. There are no cameras along the route or inside the building. It's the only place they can truly speak without the state listening in. Kariya is skeptical, questioning how she can be so sure. Tsubaki dismisses his worries, telling him the place has been searched thoroughly and cleared. Any obvious scouting for cameras would only get them arrested sooner. He's tired of the mystery and demands real answers about what happened the day before. He wants to know the truth behind the power he's felt surging within him. Tsubaki starts to explain the world as it really is. Since the emergence of Lowell, a small number of people have been born with special abilities the government is desperate to suppress. She calls these powers descent. Kariya realizes that his own outburst was just a symptom of this phenomenon, a biological rebellion against the world Lowell has created. In the eyes of the government, those who possess descent are nothing more than heretics. They are a threat to the absolute control of Lowell, and the state will stop at nothing to eliminate them. Kariya asks if she has powers too, but Tsubaki keeps her cards close to her chest. She admits she doesn't fully trust him yet, a cold reminder that in this world, trust is a luxury neither of them can afford. Frustrated by her arrogance, Kariya snaps that she's the one who called him here. To test him, Tsubaki pulls out a small statue, an idol of Lowell himself, and challenges him to destroy it using his power. Tsubaki dares him to prove his worth by recreating the destructive force he unleashed yesterday. She stares him down, her gaze a silent challenge to show her that he's more than just a terrified amateur caught in a nightmare. Kariya focuses all his will on the small statue, his hand trembling as he reaches out. He knows that if he can call upon the descent once more, his life as an ordinary student ends right here, and there's no turning back. Kariya strains to summon the same destructive power he felt yesterday, but it refuses to surface. Tsubaki watches him closely, her eyes cold as she analyzes his movements. She wonders if his descent is a form of telekinesis, but Kariya is just as lost as she is. He doesn't understand the trigger yet. Is it about physical force, or something that causes things to explode from the inside? Kariya's face turns bright red from the effort, his veins bulging as he tries to force the energy out through sheer willpower. It's an intense, desperate struggle to reclaim the power that could change his fate. Tsubaki notices the hilarious intensity of his facial expressions. Despite the gravity of their situation, she can't help but see the humor in Kariya's reddening face and bulging eyes. The tension in the room shifts from murderous intent to something almost awkward. Finally, she can't hold it in anymore and bursts into a fit of giggles. Kariya is instantly deflated, his concentration broken by her laughter. He looks at the statue of Lowell, still perfectly intact, and then back at the girl who's supposed to be his revolutionary partner. Kariya snaps at her, embarrassed and frustrated. Don't laugh. This isn't the time for making funny faces. Tsubaki tries to play it cool, denying she was even laughing, but the blush on her face gives her away. It's a rare moment of humanity between two people who have been chewed up by the system. Kariya is surprised. He didn't think a girl like her, an E-rank who talks about assassination, could actually laugh like a normal person. Tsubaki quickly regains her composure, speculating that his power might have a specific condition or isn't as easy to use as they first thought. Maybe it requires more than just concentration. A condition, The idea sticks in Kariya's mind. He has this incredible, lethal power, but he has no idea how to turn it on. He wonders if it's really something that can change the status quo, or if he's just a weapon that doesn't know how to fire. Tsubaki sets the deadline, in 3 months' time. She looks off into the distance, her voice turning cold and professional again. The countdown to their revolution has officially begun, and they have a very specific target date in mind. She explains that on April 11th, in the elite Alpha Zone, there will be a massive parade to commemorate Lowell's birthday. This is the Lowell ceremony, a day of mandatory celebration. Kariya is stunned. He's a low-ranked citizen, and news of such high-level events rarely reaches his level. Tsubaki reveals that only those with a social trust of B or higher are even notified about the parade. But the real secret is this. Despite hiding his face for years, Lowell will be addressing the citizens in person. This is their one chance to strike, and Tsubaki needs Korea's lethal potential to make it happen. The goal is simple and horrific: to kill the supreme leader in front of everyone. Tsubaki believes that if Korea can get close enough, his power will be able to end Lowell's reign in an instant, leaving the system in total chaos. She assures him that he'll leave behind no evidence. Because dissent is a biological power, there's no weapon to trace, no forensic trail for the police to follow. It's the perfect crime for a perfect society. "There's no risk to you," she says, but her eyes are unreadable. Korea looks at her, sensing the danger beneath her words. She's promising him safety, but he knows that in a revolution, no one is ever truly safe. As Korea walks away from their meeting, his mind is heavy with doubt. He doesn't know Tsubaki's true motives, and it's clear she's holding back a lot of information. He's stepping into a world of shadows, and he's starting to realize just how deep this conspiracy goes. He reflects on the absurdity of the Lowell ceremony and the supreme leader himself, a man who has never shown his face, yet rules with an iron fist. Korea needs to give this more thought before he fully commits to becoming an assassin. He's not even sure he wants to go home to the silence of his mother's apartment. He ends up at Zeon Mall, a glittering temple to Argania's social order. Even here, the atmosphere is artificial and tense, with cameras and perfect police patrolling every floor to ensure that everyone is playing their part in the great society. Sitting in a cafe, Korea watches the people around him. He thinks about the supreme leader, the mysterious figure who sits at the top of the pyramid. How did a man who never once showed his face manage to win an election and seize total control? Lowell was supposedly chosen by the people, a savior during a time of crisis. But the more Korea thinks about it, the less it makes sense. He's lived his whole life under this man's shadow without ever seeing the man himself. It's a reign of fear built on a mystery. He looks up at a massive statue of Lowell in the distance. Why build statues for someone no one has seen? Why don't the citizens know what their own leader looks like? These questions, once ignored as just the way things are now starting to eat away at Korea. He wonders why it took him this long to even ask these obvious questions. He's been a good citizen for so long, following the rules and checking his rank every morning. But a sudden mechanical VRR sound breaks his train of thought, and he looks up to see the mall security system reacting to something nearby. At the counter of a nearby shop, a man scans his ID card, showing a social trust rank of D. It's a low rank, but common enough for ordinary workers. But then the system flags something. A voice announces that electronic money is prohibited in this specific area. The man apologizes and tries to pay with cash instead. The waitress accepts it, commenting that cash is rare these days, but still legal. They're just trying to complete a simple transaction, unaware that the rules of Argania can change in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, the security cameras zoom in on them with an aggressive whir. A booming announcement echoes through the mall. Cash transactions are prohibited. Korea watches in shock as the screen displays the new law, enacted only minutes ago. The man and the waitress are trapped. The mall speakers blare a chilling order, freezing the pair in place as a deathly hush falls over the crowd. People instinctively pull back, isolating the two criminals in a sea of empty space. Korea can only watch from his table, the coffee in his cup long forgotten as the weight of the system begins to crush the atmosphere. The perfect police arrive with haunting, mechanical precision, their faceless masks reflecting the sterile lights of the mall. They loom over the trembling man and the waitress, cutting off any hope of escape. "You used cash," the lead officer declares, his voice a flat, emotionless drone. "That is a violation of the law." The simple act of paying for a meal has just become a life-altering crime. The man is desperate, stammering that he wasn't aware of the new law. He points out the obvious logic. It shouldn't be illegal to use currency issued by the very government that's now arresting him. Korea watches from the side, His jaw tightened as he hears the waitress apologize. She was just doing her job, unaware that a simple cup of coffee would lead to this. The perfect police officer looms over the man, his featureless mask reflecting a cold, absolute authority. He doesn't care about excuses. To him, using cash isn't just a mistake. It's antisocial behavior, a direct attempt to disrupt the holy order of the state. He demands the man's ID card, already moving to erase his status as a citizen. Please wait. There is no such law, the man pleads, his hands shaking. He tries to appeal to the officer's sense of reason, arguing that electronic money is meant for order and safety, so surely the government's own cash is just as valid. But reason has no place in Argania. The officer stands silent, a wall of gray wool and steel. The officer speaks with a terrifying, mechanical calm. The policies of the state are always changing, and the state's decisions are always optimal. It's the ultimate gaslighting. In this world, the truth isn't what happened. It's whatever the state says is happening right now. The man's life is being dismantled by a sentence. The man tries one last, futile argument. The cash was obtained legally. We have a right to use it, don't we? The officer's response is a chilling summary of their entire existence. Rights are determined by the laws and regulations of the state. Without the state's approval, you have no rights. You have nothing. The officers reveal the trap. The ban was announced on the news at 2 p.m. The man was at work, and the waitress was busy serving customers. They had no way of knowing. But in the eyes of the perfect police, ignorance is a crime. They don't just deduct points. They sentence them both to an education center on the spot. Take them away, the lead officer commands. The waitress is in shock, unable to believe she's being taken away for nothing. But the officer's final verdict is the most brutal of all. The two of you are already no longer human. In Argania, when you lose your rank and your liberty, you lose your very humanity. You become just another piece of trash for the state to dispose of. Kiria's eyes narrow, a dark, pulsing anger beginning to fill his vision. He's seen enough. The logic of the system, the optimal decisions of the state. It's all a lie used to crush people like insects. Something inside him is finally starting to snap. His mind drifts back to a year ago, when the world seemed slightly less insane. Regulations were more relaxed, and you could almost pretend you were free. Kiria remembers sitting in class, trying to escape into the pages of a manga, unaware that the walls were already closing in. But then, the teacher, a man with a smug smile and a B-rank collar, snatched the book away. He lectured Kiria, telling him that reading manga wasn't just against the rules. It was a sign of a deeper moral failure. The state began to police not just their actions, but their very thoughts. The teacher pointed to the art, claiming that violent stories like these had a negative impact on society. He mocked Kiria and his classmates, saying they were too immature to tell the difference between fiction and reality, and that by reading such things, they risked becoming violent themselves. It's the classic tactic of a tyrant. Blame the victim for the violence the state inflicts on them. In a final act of petty cruelty, the teacher crushed the book under his shoe. Those who read stories like these cannot be called human. The same phrase the officer used. To the elite, anyone who dares to dream or deviate is less than human. Kiria could only watch as his small escape was ground into the floor. The teacher smiled, a sickening display of concern, and told him to read good books instead, stories that didn't rely on violence, imaginative stories that everyone could enjoy. In other words, state-approved propaganda. Kiria's expression was blank, but the seed of resentment was planted deep. The memory fades, leaving Kiria back in the mall, staring at the empty space where his innocence used to be. The world didn't just become insane overnight. It happened piece by piece, one crushed book and one retrospective law at a time. The book lies broken on the classroom floor, a symbol of a generation being told they don't matter. The world is gradually becoming insane. It's a realization that hits Kiria with the force of a tidal wave. He looks at the officer's mask again, those hollow black eyes that see people only as numbers and ranks. The optimal society is nothing more than a slaughterhouse. The officer repeats his cold mantra. The two of you are already no longer human. It's the final spark. Korea has heard this lie enough times. If the state gets to decide who is human, then the state is the enemy of humanity itself. He watches as the perfect police start to drag the man and the waitress away. The shoppers around them look on with a mix of pity and relief that it isn't them. Korea's eyes are fixed on the back of the officer's head, his vision blurring as the dissent power begins to surge within him, fueled by a year of suppressed rage. The crowd watches in a collective, terrified silence as the innocent are led away. Korea's internal voice is screaming now. Don't you dare look down on humans. He isn't a student anymore. He isn't a C rank. He is a weapon of the people's fury. Don't you dare. Korea's eyes are practically glowing now, the focus of his power narrowing down to a single point. He isn't trying to move a statue anymore. He's trying to destroy the agents of Lowell. The air around him feels like it's vibrating with lethal energy. He sits there, arms crossed, looking for all the world like a bored teenager. But inside, he's tearing the world apart. Look down on humans. The phrase echoes in his mind, becoming the trigger Tsubaki said he needed. His anger has finally found its condition. The officers take a step, but they don't get far. Korea's power strikes with a speed and violence that no one could have anticipated. He doesn't move a muscle, but the very space around the officers begins to distort and buckle. One of the perfect police officers stops in his tracks, his head tilting back as if an invisible force is gripping his skull. For the first time, the mechanical precision of the officer is broken by a twitch of pure, unadulterated shock. The predator has suddenly become the prey. Then comes the sound of sharp crack. The officer's mask begins to fracture, lines of black and white splintering across the featureless face. It's as if something inside his head is expanding, trying to burst out through the ceramic and bone. The crowd gasps as the impossible happens right before their eyes. The fractures spread across the officer's face, the mask crumbling away like a broken eggshell. Beneath the uniform and the ideology, there's only a man about to be unmade by a force he cannot comprehend. Korea's focus is absolute, his gaze a laser of pure, concentrated hatred directed at the first enforcer, but this is only the beginning of his retribution. With a sickening spray of black and crimson, the officer's head is crushed and torn apart from the inside, blood splattering across the pristine tiles and hitting the terrified waitress. As the first body falls, the mall erupts into screams of terror and confusion. Korea stands motionless, his expression unreadable as his gaze shifts toward the second officer, ready to continue the bloodbath. Panic erupts in Zeon Mall as the second perfect police officer's mask begins to crack. The crowd, already on edge, can only watch in horror as the state's supposedly invincible enforcer starts to crumble. Blood splatters across the pristine white tiles, a grim testament to Korea's sudden, violent awakening. People are screaming, "What the and huh?" as the world they knew disappears in a spray of crimson. Then comes the sound of a sickening pop as an eye bursts through the fractured mask. The officer collapses, his body hitting the floor with a heavy thud. The waitress and the man stand frozen, covered in the blood of the men who were just about to take them away. They can only gasp in shock, unable to comprehend the divine or demonic intervention that just saved them. The mall is littered with the broken bodies of the perfect police. The pristine temple of consumerism and social rank has been turned into a slaughterhouse in a matter of seconds. The shoppers, once so careful to maintain their composure, are now stepping over the corpses in their desperate haste to escape the scene. Korea's work is done, but the silence he leaves behind is heavier than the screams. In the distance, the sirens are already wailing. The survivors stare at the bodies, their faces pale and their minds racing. In Argania, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the weight of a secret that can get you killed. No one dares to look at Korea, who is already starting to fade back into the crowd, just another student with a backpack. Korea catches the waitress's eye for a split second. She's trembling, the blood on her face a literal mark of her brush with the dissent. Kiria doesn't say a word, his expression cold and focused. He's already miles away, his heart still thumping with the rhythm of the power he just unleashed. He adjusts his backpack and walks toward the exit, his collar feeling tighter than ever. The whispers start immediately. Bombs. Poisonous gas? No, it was a gun. The public's imagination is already trying to find a logical explanation for the impossible. Kiria hears them as he runs, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Who cares? Just run, someone screams. The great society is fracturing, and fear is the only currency left. Kiria pushes through the panicked crowd, his hood up, his face down. He needs to put as much distance between himself and the mall as possible before the area is completely locked down. Every virar of a security camera feels like a spotlight, but for once he isn't afraid. The rage that fueled him is still there, a low-burning fire that feels like home. He doesn't look back at the Xi'an Mall, now a beacon of chaos in the city skyline. He walks through the back alleys and side streets Tsubaki showed him, his mind replaying the moment of the attack over and over. He killed 2 men. He should feel something, guilt, horror, anything, but all he feels is a strange, empty clarity. Kiria emerges into the city's residential districts, where life still seems normal, at least on the surface. But to him, everything has changed. The buildings feel like cages, the citizens like cattle. He's no longer part of their world. He's the thing they've been taught to fear. He keeps his head down, his presence a ghost in the twilight. His breathing is still heavy as he stops to rest. He catches a glimpse of his own reflection in a darkened shop window, a tired student with red hair and a black collar. He looks so ordinary, yet he just did the unthinkable. The sound of his own breath is the only proof that he's still alive, that he's still human. He remembers Tsubaki's voice, her cold analysis of his power. There might be a condition, and now he knows what it is. He clenches his fist, the realization hitting him with the force of a hammer. The condition is rage is the trigger. It wasn't about telekinesis or explosions. It was about his fury made manifest. He's found his Kipno. IT destroys the target. The words echo in the darkness. It's a simple, brutal truth. Kiria has the power to unmake anything he hates, to erase the enforcers of the state with a thought. It's a terrifying responsibility, and for the first time, he understands why the government is so desperate to hunt down the heretics. He walks through the city, his backpack feeling like a heavy weight. Every person he passes, every camera he dodges, is a reminder of the world he's now at war with. He's exhausted, his mind and body pushed to their limits. He just wants to go home, but home doesn't feel like a sanctuary anymore. It feels like a place he's just visiting. Kiria looks at his hand, the hand that did nothing and yet did everything. Rage and destruction. He realizes that he's no longer the victim of this world. He's its judge. The fear he felt his whole life has been replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. He's ready to do whatever it takes to tear this system down. He stops in the middle of the street, looking up at the oppressive towers of Argania. He finally admits the truth to himself, a truth that has been building since the day his father disappeared and the day his mother was taken away. He isn't a hero. He's a force of nature. I might be able to destroy it. The first spark of true revolution. This total contempt for human life. That's what Argania is. A world where you can be unmade for a cup of coffee and a piece of paper. Kiria looks at the city one last time before turning away. I might be able to destroy this world. It's a vow, whispered to the cold night air. The boy who was afraid to admire the snow is gone. In his place stands a killer. Elsewhere, Tsubaki sits in silence, her expression unreadable. She's an E-rank student, a nobody in the great society, yet she holds the keys to the kingdom. She knows what Kiria has done, and she knows what it means for their plan. She looks like a queen on a throne of shadows, waiting for the pieces to fall into place. The news report breaks that night, a calm, clinical voice describing the heinous terrorist attack. The reporter explains that the area has been placed under strict lockdown following the killing of 2 perfect police officers. Surveillance footage exists, but the suspect has yet to be identified. The state is already moving to control the narrative, turning Korea's act of rebellion into a threat against the people themselves. The news broadcast plays on every screen in the city. Reports suggest the weapon utilized falls outside established behavioral patterns. It's a roundabout way of saying they have no idea what happened. Then comes the lure for the citizens. If you submit crucial information, you will be rewarded with enough points to increase your social trust by 2 ranks. The state is turning neighbor against neighbor, using the rank system to hunt for the heretic. The propaganda continues. This is regarded as a heinous terrorist attack that threatens the very foundations of Argania. Korea listens to the broadcast through his headphones, a bitter smile on his face. They talk about foundations when they mean control. They talk about terror when they mean fear of the truth. He's a heretic now, and he's never felt more awake. The final warning is clear. The public is being urged to stay away from the area around the scene for their safety. Those who engage in suspicious behavior will face stricter penalties. Argania is closing its fist. The city is quiet, but it's the quiet of a graveyard, not a sanctuary. Korea walks home, his backpack a badge of his new identity. The next day at school, the attack is all anyone could talk about. They said it was terrorists, one student whispers. Apparently, it was a large man, another adds. The rumors are already flying, 1,000 different versions of what happened to them all. Korea sits at his desk, listening to the chatter, his face a perfect mask of indifference. He's the monster they're talking about, and he's sitting right next to them. The theories grow more absurd by the minute. Didn't he open fire because he was about to be arrested for using cash? No, they have yet to identify the murder weapon. They wrecked the store with a bomb. Korea catches Tsubaki's eye. She's sitting in her usual spot, looking bored. She knows the truth, and for the first time, Korea feels a strange sense of relief that he's not alone in his secret. Honestly, that's a relief, one student says about the store being wrecked. Fear and frustration are starting to boil over even in the classroom. Tsubaki says nothing, her dark eyes briefly meeting Korea's before she looks away. In a room full of noise, they're the only ones who know the truth. Korea can feel her presence like a silent invitation, a reminder that their date is coming, and with it, a revolution that will change everything. As the teacher begins the lesson, life in Argania seems to return to its usual hollow routine. But Korea's mind is far from the classroom. He gazes out the window at the general store, his thoughts already turning inward. He knows he can't just wait for the next outburst. He needs to master this power on his own terms before the point of no return. Korea sits alone, the weight of his actions at the mall still pressing down on him. Sweat beads on his forehead as he tries to recreate that same raw power in a controlled environment. He's no longer just a student. He's a killer, and the reality of that is finally starting to sink in. He reaches out toward a small statue of an idol, closing his eyes and searching for that same spark of fury. Sure enough, I can destroy things by focusing on the unpleasant memories. With a sharp crack, the statue's head shatters. He's found a trigger, but it feels different now. Colder, more intentional. Korea looks at the broken pieces, analyzing the results. However, using this method, its destructive force and range are limited. He realizes that his power isn't a constant stream of energy. It's a burst of violence that depends entirely on his state of mind. Without the raw, unfiltered rage he felt at the mall, he's significantly weaker. At best, I can destroy a small area if my hand comes within 30 centimeters, he notes, looking at the minuscule damage compared to the explosion yesterday. Suddenly, Tsubaki's voice cuts through the silence. Hey. She's been watching him from the entrance, her expression as unreadable as ever. Korea can tell immediately that she's really angry. Tsubaki stands with her hands on her hips, her dark eyes boring into him. Your existence has been exposed, she says, her voice flat and cold. By attacking the police in public, Korea has thrown all their careful planning out the window. There's a high chance of getting arrested, idiot. Tsubaki doesn't hold back. She explains that from here on, the state will only get more aggressive. Regulations will become stricter, and innocent people will be dragged into the investigation. Korea's impulsive act of heroism has made life even more dangerous for everyone. Korea can only offer a quiet son. But Tsubaki isn't interested in apologies. Apologizing to me won't help, she snaps. She demands that he take responsibility for what he's done. She's surprisingly intense, her concern for the bigger picture clashing with Kiria's desire to protect individuals. "You're such an idiot," she repeats, clearly frustrated by his lack of foresight. Tsubaki points out the grim reality of his actions. Because of your actions, innocent citizens may be harmed in the future. They could be suspected of being heretics and sent to detention camps just for being in the same mall. Korea is caught off guard by her logic, his face turning red. "Why are you blushing? Are you an idiot?" she asks, her anger momentarily replaced by confusion. Tsubaki gets right in his face, her gaze unwavering. "It'll only get worse. You have to kill Lowell, the one behind everything." To her, there's only one way to end this cycle of violence and oppression. Korea listens, the weight of his new mission settling into his bones. "That's what you meant by responsibility?" he asks. "Yes," she replies. "There is no turning back now." Korea looks at her, a cold resolve finally taking hold. "All right, I'll kill Lowell." He says it without hesitation. He's tired of being the victim, tired of seeing the people he hates thrive while everyone else suffers. He's accepted his role as the state's executioner. He reflects on the insanity of the world, the systematic distortion of logic, the detention camps where people like Reichel's parents are sent, the constant censorship of manga and movies he used to love. Reasonable logic is being systematically distorted. The world has taken everything from him, and now it's his turn to take something back. He's surrounded by a society that feels more like a prison every day. Korea's expression hardens, his eyes dark with a years-long resentment. "I'm beyond angry. This isn't just about a cash ban or a crushed book anymore. It's about a world that has decided that some lives are worth less than others." He is ready to unleash the full force of his fury on the man at the top. Tsubaki starts counting down his toll. 3 people at the lake the other day. 2 perfect police officers yesterday. She lists them off like a grocery list, making sure he understands the weight of what he is. She's testing him, seeing if he has the stomach for what's to come. "You've killed 5 people. You've even become a state-level terrorist," she says, her voice echoing in the ruins. "What do you feel right now?" It's the ultimate question. She wants to know if he's still the boy who was afraid to stand out, or if he's already become something else. Korea takes a moment to check his own heart. "What do I feel right now? My feelings? Fear? Guilt?" He searches for the expected reactions, but he finds nothing. How strange. He realizes that the violence didn't break him. It just revealed the emptiness that was already there. "I feel nothing." The admission is chilling. Tsubaki watches him, wondering if he's truly numb or just putting up a brave front. She acknowledges that he was protecting people at the mall, but she calls it short-sighted. Korea can only offer a dry thanks for the wonderful assessment. The dynamic between them has shifted. They're no longer just allies, but 2 halves of a dark design. Tsubaki suddenly changes the subject, asking if there are any old movies he enjoyed. Korea is confused. Where did that come from? He mentions a suspense movie called This Forest is Forever. Tsubaki listens, then drops a bombshell of a different kind. "Tomorrow's a day off, right? Let's go on a date." Korea can only gasp "wah" as the chapter ends on this bizarrely normal note. The revolution will have to wait. For now, they have a date. Chapter 3 begins with a glimpse into a suspense movie titled This Forest is Forever. The premise is a classic horror trope. 5 college friends head to a remote cabin deep in the woods for a vacation, only to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. Every time they try to leave, the road leads them right back to the cabin. Thick, suffocating fog swallows everything, leaving no escape in sight. It's a standard psychological thriller, or so it seems. As their food runs low and paranoia sets in, old college grudges and petty betrayal surface. The group eventually fractures, and a brutal fight breaks out among the friends. In the end, Only 2 survivors remain. They apologize for the blood on their hands. But then something strange happens in this modern version of the film. The ending feels twisted, forced by an unseen hand. The surviving protagonist justifies the killings, claiming the others were dissidents who deserved to die. It's a chilling shift from survival horror to state propaganda, where violence is only acceptable if it serves the regime. As the credits roll with the message, "To Lowell, with love," we see Korea sitting in the nearly empty theater. He's been watching this blatant piece of brainwashing, his expression unreadable. Outside the cinema, Korea meets up with Tsubaki. Because she's an E-rank, she wasn't even allowed inside the theater. In this society, even your entertainment is gated by your social standing. Tsubaki is curious about the film, but Korea's review is far from positive. He realizes that the version he just saw has been heavily tampered with. He explains that it's a modern re-release, a sanitized version of the original story he once knew. The changes aren't just creative, they're ideological. In the original, there were no dissidents and no mention of the supreme leader. The new ending, where the survivors become loyal followers, makes absolutely no narrative sense. It's just propaganda. The message is clear and dangerous. Only the followers of Lowell are allowed to use violence. The government is rewriting history and fiction alike to justify their own brutality. Korea and Tsubaki walk through a park, discussing how the government is clumsily patching old movies and books to suit their needs. They even advise against using streaming services, as it compromises personal data for surveillance. Tsubaki notes that while most people blindly follow the new narrative, those who complain online immediately expose themselves to the authorities. The system is designed to weed out any spark of original thought. It's a terrifying reality. The government holds such contempt for its citizens that they're sure everyone will eventually swallow their version of the truth, simply because there's no other option. Any dissenting comment is deleted, and the commenter can be sent to an education center. This censorship is spreading through every form of media, from movies and manga to classic novels. Tsubaki warns that soon, every protagonist in every story will be a follower of Lowell. The erasure of individual identity and history is nearly complete. It's infuriating, and Tsubaki wants Korea to feel that anger. She tells him to let his hate for Lowell fester, knowing that his power thrives on that very emotion. Korea stops and looks at her. He feels it's finally time for Tsubaki to open up about herself and her own reasons for fighting this regime. Tsubaki agrees, admitting that her situation is similar to his and many others. In this world, no one escapes the government's reach unscathed. She begins to tell him about her older sister. Her sister loved classic literature and would fill notebooks with passages from forbidden books. But today, buying such literature is a serious crime. With their mother gone long ago, Tsubaki's sister was the one who raised her and taught her to appreciate the beauty of the old world. Korea listens, realizing how deep her loss goes. But then, the government took her away. The reason didn't even matter. In a society of total control, any deviation is enough to make a person disappear. They continue walking in silence for a moment as Tsubaki's voice begins to tremble. The memories of her sister's disappearance still haunt her every day. As Tsubaki speaks, a single tear escapes her eyes. In this world of forced compliance, her genuine grief is a silent act of rebellion that leaves Korea momentarily speechless. She quickly wipes the tear away, apologizing for showing such weakness. Korea looks at her, finally understanding the heavy burden his partner carries. Yet he has no idea that this fragile moment of peace is about to be violently shattered. Suddenly, the scene shifts. Korea is surrounded by looming, shadowy figures. A voice whispers, "I'm sorry." The confusion is immediate and jarring. A hand grips his shoulder. Korea barely has time to react, a startled, escaping his lips before everything goes dark. In the darkness of his fading consciousness, he sees Tsubaki. She looks somber, standing alone in a black void. Her name hangs in the air, a silent question as he wonders what just happened. When the world returns, Korea is lying face down on the cold, hard cobblestones. He's been ambushed, knocked out instantly from behind before he could even defend himself. His eye flutters open. He's disoriented, the world a blur as he tries to piece together his surroundings. This isn't the park anymore. He wakes up fully to find himself in a stark, windowless room. He's sitting on a hard chair, and his hands are pulled behind his back, secured tightly with handcuffs. A metallic voice crackles through a speaker on the wall. TH-4891. You must be Korea. They don't just know his name. They know his state-assigned identification number. The interrogation has begun. The voice identifies itself as the Information Control Bureau. They claim to have a few questions, but the cold, sterile environment tells Korea this is much more than a simple interview. Korea sits alone, his back to the speaker. He's trapped in a high-security cell, at the mercy of a faceless interrogator. The atmosphere is thick with dread. Memories flash in his mind. The shadowy figures, Tsubaki's tearful face, and her apology. Was her, "I'm sorry," a warning? Or was it a confession of betrayal? He stares down at his bound hands, his jaw set. "All right," Korea says, his voice steady despite the situation. He knows that in this room, every word is a weapon, and he needs to be careful not to give them anything. The questions start coming fast. They accuse him of murdering 2 perfect police officers. Then comes the devastating blow. The interrogator claims Tsubaki sold him out, requesting a rank increase in exchange for his head. Korea's mind races. Is she really the one behind this? He examines the room. It's a perfect trap. No knob on the door, no way out. He remembers the moment he was struck down. They were efficient, professional, and they knew exactly where to find him. "We have to verify if you're actually a heretic," the voice booms. They demand to know his whereabouts during the recent terrorist attack. Korea plays it cool, claiming he doesn't remember. The interrogator isn't buying it. 2 days ago isn't exactly ancient history. They press him on why he turned off his phone near the scene of the crime. They've been tracking his every move. Korea stares back at the wall, his gaze cold. They have surveillance logs, data, everything. He knows he's being cornered, but he refuses to let them see him sweat. He gives a simple, plausible excuse. His battery ran out. But the interrogator immediately fires back, questioning why he'd let that happen right at that specific time. Every answer he gives only leads to more scrutiny. The questions shift to Tsubaki. They saw them talking and want to know if they were working together. They ask if she has anti-government thoughts. Korea maintains his innocence, claiming he knows nothing. He's protecting her, even after they told him she betrayed him. The interrogator tries a different tactic. They claim she's the heretic and gave them false info to frame him. It's a classic psychological game, pitting allies against each other to see who breaks first. Korea listens, his eyes narrowing. What is this? He wonders. The circular logic of the interrogation is designed to trap him. He sticks to his story, but the pressure is building. They want a confession, any confession. The voice uses a twisted logic. Saying you don't have anti-government thoughts is exactly what a dissident would say. In their eyes, his denial is proof of his guilt. It's a rigged game where every path leads to a conviction. They tell him he's just a victim of manipulation, a product of someone else's influence. They try to strip away his sense of agency, calling him an ordinary person who just thinks he's special. Korea stands his ground. He knows who he is. The verbal assault continues, labeling his beliefs as delusions and him as a perpetrator throwing the world into chaos. It's a barrage of insults and psychological pressure meant to shatter his resolve. Korea simply tells them he doesn't understand their point. The speaker crackles one last time with that same, goading question. Are you dissatisfied with the government? Korea remains silent, his head bowed in the shadows, but the air in the room begins to feel heavy with a growing, unseen pressure. The camera pans down to his tightly cuffed hands. He's cornered, isolated, and pushed to his absolute limit. But the interrogator has made a fatal mistake. They haven't broken him. They've only provided the spark for the explosion that's about to follow. Korea's silence doesn't last long. With a sudden burst of power, he roars, Of course I am, as he shatters the metal handcuffs like they were made of glass. The rage destruction within him has finally been ignited. He stands up, his eyes burning with defiance. You're the one lost in your own made-up bullshit, he snarls at the speaker. He's done being a pawn in their psychological games. Korea is fully aware of the risks. In a real government facility, breaking out by force would mean being gunned down by the perfect police the moment he stepped outside. But his intuition tells him something is different here. He places his hand on the door without a knob. With another surge of his descent ability, he shatters the very wall itself. The illusory barrier crumbles, revealing that his cell was nothing more than a carefully constructed stage. He steps through the debris and finds a real, ordinary door. He reaches for the handle, prepared for whatever, or whoever, is waiting on the other side. This is the moment of truth. Behind the door, he finds a man sitting calmly in a room filled with books. This is Nero, a rank B individual who looks more like a refined scholar than a government interrogator. He sits behind a desk, his eyes fixed on a computer screen, completely unbothered by Korea's explosive entrance. Korea confronts him immediately. You aren't government. Why are you testing me? He's realized the whole interrogation was a sham, a high-stakes audition designed to push him to his limits. Nero takes a slow drag from his cigarette, his expression unreadable. He's been watching Korea's every move, and so far, he seems impressed by what he's seen. I'm the chairman of the Clark Association, the man reveals. An anti-government underground organization. I'm Nero, GM 992. The truth is out. Korea hasn't been captured by the state, but by the resistance. Nero is curious. At what point did Korea realize the interrogation was fake? Korea admits it was just a hunch, especially the part about Tsubaki selling him out for a rank increase. He didn't believe she was that kind of person. Korea didn't trust the narrative. He hardly knows Tsubaki, but he didn't think she'd be happy just to go from rank E to rank C. He saw through Nero's attempt to sow discord between them. Besides, Korea adds, the government wouldn't ask so many pointless questions. He knows the state's methods are far more direct and brutal. Nero can only smile. He's found someone with a truly sharp mind. Nero is fascinated that Korea was willing to destroy his handcuffs and burst through that door, even knowing it could have cost him his life if it had been a real facility. He's impressed by the boy's sheer balls. Korea's logic is cold and practical. If he had actually been inside a government facility, he would have planned to take out a few officers and escape if the chance arose. He was prepared for the worst from the start. Splendid, Nero says, his eyes gleaming with delight. To not only trust your intuition, but also to act while weighing every possibility. I like it. He sees more than just power in Korea. He sees a strategist. Nero continues his praise. Your rage destruction descent is amazing. But it's not just your ability. Your mindset is remarkable as well. He's clearly trying to win Korea over, but Korea remains guarded. The atmosphere remains tense. Korea asks, what's with this guy? He's still wary of Nero's motives. Nero then asks a pointed question. Have you gotten used to being called by your number yet? Korea TH 4891? Nero explains the deep-seated horror of Lowell's regime. The first thing the Supreme Leader did was name management, erasing last names and replacing them with numbers. It was a calculated move to weaken blood relatives and destroy the very idea of family. The erasure of the family unit made identification effortless and surveillance easier. Nero reveals they are now in stage 2. Family members aren't just losing their names, they're being swapped. The fabric of society is being torn apart piece by piece, yet the public remains quiet. We must act before it's too late, Nero urges. Then comes the offer. Will you join us? Nero wants Korea's strength and intellect for his resistance movement. He sees Korea as the key to taking down Lowell's empire. Nero apologizes for the brutal test, admitting he was worried about what kind of person Korea was, given his special ability. Korea asks simply, does that mean I passed? Nero gives a small, satisfied nod. Yup, but Korea isn't about to play nice. He lashes out with his power again, shattering Nero's desk or nearby glass. He's not going to be some special tool for Nero's cause just because he survived a shitty test. You failed, asshole. Kiriya screams, his anger boiling over. First you put me through that shitty test, and now you're flattering me to get me on your side? Quit screwing with me. He's sick of being manipulated by everyone, government or resistance. The door swings open and a man in a lab coat, Sakamaki, rushes in. He's only a rank D, but Kiriya isn't taking any chances. With his adrenaline still surging, he grabs a heavy desk lamp, transforming the office into a battlefield. Without a second of hesitation, Kiriya lunges. He's tired of the talking and the mind games. Now, he's looking for a real opening. As he swings the lamp with all his might, he knows that in this world, speed and instinct are the only things that will keep him alive. Kiriya doesn't back down from the newcomer. He knows that in this world, speed is everything. He vows to activate his ability the moment he feels the slightest hint of drowsiness. It's a gamble, but he's already pushed past his limits. Your touch can put people to sleep, right? Kiriya asks, his eyes narrowed. He's already deduced the nature of his opponent's power. He's not just a fighter. He's an analyst, constantly searching for a weakness. Sakamaki, the man in the lab coat, is visibly annoyed. This brat, he mutters. Nero watches from the shadows, a faint smile playing on his lips as he wonders whose ability will prove quicker in this lethal game of chess. The tension in the room is palpable. Kiriya is ready to strike, his rage destruction pitted against Sakamaki's sleep-inducing touch. It's a clash of wills, with the chairman watching like a hawk. Nero realizes that Kiriya's earlier outburst wasn't just mindless rage. It was a calculated move to draw him out. He's beginning to see the true potential of the boy standing before him. In his mind, Nero ticks off Kiriya's qualities: quick-witted, instinctive, and possessing a powerful dissent. He's no longer just a child in Nero's eyes. He's the perfect candidate for what comes next. He sees Kiriya as the key to his ultimate goal, the only one who truly has what it takes to carry out the assassination of Supreme Leader Lowell. Easy there, Sakamaki. I think that's enough. Nero finally intervenes, putting an end to the standoff. Tsubaki and another girl have entered the room, the mood shifting from lethal to awkward. Kiriya turns his gaze toward Tsubaki, his expression cold. After everything they went through, he can't help but feel betrayed by the setup. Tsubaki can only look away, her silence speaking volumes. You did that to see how I'd react? Kiriya asks, his voice low and dangerous. He's tired of being a lab rat. He tells them he doesn't fit in with people like them and prepares to walk away for good. Renza explains that Nero joined the Information Control Bureau specifically because of his love for media. It was the only way he could get his hands on original first editions before they were disposed of by the government. Even as he turns to leave, Kiriya can't help but feel a lingering sting. Tsubaki brought him here, and in doing so, she shared his secrets with a room full of strangers. The trust they had built is in tatters. Renza, ever the optimist, takes the opportunity to introduce herself. She's a second-year high school student who loves taiyaki and hates liver. She even mentions that Sakamaki is actually a social studies teacher. It's a bizarrely normal introduction in the middle of a resistance hideout. Kiriya isn't interested in small talk. The Clark Association? Who are you people, he demands. He wants to know exactly what kind of resistance he stumbled into. They explain their origin. They started as a club for collecting films and manga, dedicated to preserving media created before the government's heavy-handed censorship. But Sakamaki is still mourning the loss of a rare book that Kiriya destroyed during his outburst. It was a first edition of a manga called Sea of the Moon. Nero is devastated. He should have stored such a precious item somewhere else. Kiriya's power didn't just break the wall. It claimed a piece of history. Kiriya's ears perk up at the name. Sea of the Moon. He recognizes it instantly, a rare moment of connection to the culture Nero is trying to save. He even knows the details. It's a sci-fi esper story by Hinano Yukihara that's been out of circulation for years. Sakamaki is stunned that a kid like Kariya would know about such an obscure, forbidden work. Sakamaki can't help but rub it in. You destroyed it. It can't be read anymore. Kariya remains silent, the reality of what he's done beginning to sink in. He's destroyed something irreplaceable. Kariya looks around the room, taking a closer look at the shelves. Every book, every film, it's all either out of circulation or heavily censored by the regime. This isn't just a library. It's a graveyard of human creativity. Kariya ponders the irony. The Information Control Bureau is the very heart of the state's propaganda machine, responsible for gathering and analyzing data to maintain national security. How Nero managed to infiltrate such an organization is a mystery in itself. You steal media before it's destroyed? Kariya asks as Nero lights a cigarette. That's risky. In a world of total surveillance, such a small act of defiance could easily lead to a death sentence. Nero's conviction is clear. Someone must protect the past before it's erased forever. But for Kariya, books and films aren't enough to heal his scars. He declares he's leaving, ready to walk away from the Clark Association and their high-minded ideals. Nero's voice cuts through the room, stopping Kariya in his tracks. Wait, I'm not finished, the chairman says, his tone losing its casual edge. Kariya halts, sensing that Nero is finally about to drop the mask and talk about the one thing that truly matters, the fall of Lowell. Kariya stops, but he doesn't turn around yet. Aren't you curious? Nero's voice echoes from behind. He's about to reveal something that could change everything Kariya knows about the Supreme Leader. Nihil mention l'OLS descend. He claims there's a specific, terrifying reason why the Supreme Leader must be killed as soon as possible. Kariya listens, the weight of the task ahead beginning to dawn on him. Kariya finally turns back, his curiosity piqued despite his distrust. Lowell's descent, he repeats. In a world where everyone has a special ability, the power of the man at the top must be beyond anything they can imagine. Tsubaki and Rinza watch the exchange, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. Nero gives him a knowing look. Let's meet again, he says, his tone strangely final. He's finished his pitch, and now the ball is in Kariya's court. Nero makes his final offer. Let me know if you want to join us. I can't reveal the location of this place until you do. He promises to drop Kariya back at the spot where he was captured, ensuring no trace of his departure is left for the government to find. Kariya listens, his face unreadable as he weighs his options. Later that night, a white wind winds through the dark, deserted streets of the city. Kariya is being transported back to the reality he knows, his mind still buzzing with everything he's just learned. The van pulls over at the edge of the park. Kariya steps out onto the pavement, the cool night air hitting his face. Tsubaki is there, waiting for him, her silhouette dark against the trees. The world feels different now, more dangerous and full of secrets. As Kariya walks away, Tsubaki tries to follow, but he stops her with a cold command. Stop following me. The events of the day have left a deep rift between them. You've lost my trust, he adds, his voice like ice. He hasn't forgotten the test she led him into. Tsubaki stops in her tracks, her head bowed. I'm sorry, she whispers. She tries to explain her motives, that she needs their help to change the world. Kariya just scoffs. Need, huh? You need my ability as well. He feels like a tool, a weapon to be used and discarded. Tsubaki insists she's on his side and even warns him not to use his ability too much. She claims they want the same thing, killing Lowell, but Kariya is having none of it. Don't screw with me, he snarls. I'm more pissed at you than them. To him, her betrayal feels far more personal. He then asks her about a novel titled The Eternal Ancient Capital. Tsubaki stands alone in the moonlight, her expression blown as she explains her connection to the book. It was something her sister used to read and always recommended because it was really good. But Tsubaki, wanting to find her own path, never bothered to read it. Now, that missed opportunity feels like a heavy burden. She reveals the tragic truth. Her sister is gone, and so is the eternal ancient capital. Everything she once took for granted has been erased by the regime. Kariya listens, his anger slowly giving way to a shared sense of loss. He admits he's been through something similar himself. Kiriya lunges forward, his hand outstretched. "Don't dodge the issue," he commands. He wants the truth, without any more games or metaphors. He's pushing her for a commitment that goes beyond just needing his power. Tsubaki looks him in the eye, her resolve hardening. "Kiriya, you've lost a great deal. Yes, we're similar." She claims that only she can truly understand the pain he's carrying. It's a moment of profound, shared isolation in a world that has stripped them of everything. They stand facing each other, two middle schoolers caught in a situation far beyond their years. "There is no one else," Tsubaki says. They are alone in their fight, bonded by a shared tragedy that no one else can understand. They're the only two left who are prepared to fight back. Kiriya stares into her eyes, searching for any sign of deception. "What the?" he wonders. Her gaze is steady, filled with a raw determination that takes him by surprise. He's never seen this side of her before. "How much can I trust you?" Kiriya asks, his voice barely a whisper. He's on the edge of a precipice, deciding whether to truly join forces with the girl who just led him into a trap. The stakes couldn't be higher. Tsubaki doesn't blink. "Even if you can't trust me, I trust you, Kiriya." She remembers the day he helped her, a lowly rank E, despite the world's strict rules. That act of kindness is the foundation of her loyalty, a spark of humanity in a cold, heartless society. She makes a startling confession. "What I need isn't your ability." She's not just looking for a weapon. She's looking for an ally, someone who shares her vision and her pain. Kiriya watches her, his expression unreadable. Kiriya's skepticism remains. "Are you going to betray me?" he asks bluntly. Tsubaki's response is immediate and firm. "Never." The promise hangs in the air, a fragile oath between two outcasts. "I don't know you. I can't just take you at your word," Kiriya says, his eyes narrowing. He knows that in their world, words are cheap and betrayal is everywhere. He's dealing with hypotheticals, trying to find a way to secure her loyalty for good. Tsubaki bows her head, accepting the weight of his suspicion. "If I betray you, you could go ahead and kill me. With your own hands." It's a chilling offer, a bloodbound contract that shows just how far she's willing to go to prove her sincerity. Kiriya stares at her, his expression a mix of shock and calculation. He's looking for any sign of a lie, any hint that she's playing another game. But Tsubaki remains still, her eyes fixed on the ground as she awaits his decision. "Very well," Kiriya finally says, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He reaches out and rests his hand atop Tsubaki's head, a gesture of both grim acceptance and absolute dominance. He has accepted her life as collateral, and the weight of that decision hangs heavy in the air. Under the cold glow of the moonlight, the chapter ends with his final, chilling warning. "I will kill you if you betray me." With this dark oath, their fates are now inextricably linked, setting the stage for a revolution that will be written in blood. The hunt for Lowell is no longer a dream. It's a death pact. They lock eyes, the silence between them heavy with the gravity of their pact. There are no more secrets, no more tests, only the harsh reality of their shared mission. In this moment, they are no longer just two middle school students. They are conspirators in a deadly game where the cost of failure is everything. Kiriya looks toward the city, where a massive statue of Supreme Leader Lowell looms over the skyline like a god. The scale of their enemy is overwhelming, a monument to a power that has crushed millions. But Kiriya's resolve is set. "I'm going to join them," he declares. The stage is set for a revolution, and though they are small against the shadows of the regime, they have finally taken their first step toward the light. Welcome to the Information Control Bureau, the heart of Argania's truth-bending machine. Here, we meet Kinro, or rather, one side of him, stepping into a world where reality is whatever the state says it is. The morning starts with a mandatory medication check. One pill to dull the mind, one step closer to total obedience. Kinro and the others follow the protocol without question. The employees gather in a massive, shadowed hall, like a congregation waiting for a dark sermon. The silence is heavy, expectant. Row after row of identical suits, eyes fixed on the blank screen. They wait for the only voice that matters in this world. Then, the image of Supreme Leader Lowell flickers to life. He calls them allies, but the presence on the screen is less like a leader and more like a god. The brainwashing is complete. They chant about being happy and fulfilled, even as they talk about eliminating those who are of no use to the state. Their joy is forced, manufactured by the drugs in their veins. Kinro looks up, tears streaming down his face. It's a chilling sight. A man weeping with a smile, his mind awash in the joy of hearing Lowell's voice. They speak of discipline as their guiding principle and iron will as their pride. In this chamber, mercy is a sin and cruelty is a virtue. Righteousness and strength are with us. The screen burns these words into their memories, a final seal on their daily indoctrination. In a brain dulled by drugs, Lowell's voice seeps in like a narcotic, ensuring that these people will never and can never resist. Now comes the real work. Kinro sits at his desk, his task, to correct the terminology in past articles. He isn't just an editor, he's a surgeon of history. Under his hands, censorship becomes information protection. Dictatorship is softened into stable government. Piece by piece, the past is rewritten to fit the present. It's a manual process because AI can't always catch the nuance of a lie. Every article across all media is subtly altered, one word at a time. The result? No one knows how the government actually works anymore. Even the title of president has been erased, replaced by the ominous supreme leader. Reality is becoming a blur of elegant, meaningless words. When everything is vague, the people lose their ability to deny the lies. Lunchtime finally arrives. Kinro smiles to himself, the perfect mask of a happy citizen. In Argania, as long as Lowell rules, there are no mistakes. He leaves his post, his expression blanking out as he joins the stream of workers moving toward the cafeteria. At the table, he meets ally Reichel. They talk in code, their voices low as they discuss the latest shifts in the social trust assessment system. In this world, even hoarding food is a crime. The recent terrorist attack that killed the police officers has made the state even more paranoid. Everything is changing suddenly, and the pressure is mounting. Kinro asks Reichel for the data later, pretending it's for work. They finish their meal with a mandatory praise. Lowell is the great guardian. Always watching, always heard. Back in the office, Kinro is just another cog in the machine. But beneath that suit and the blank stare, something else is happening. He walks slowly, his eyes scanning everything. Every monitor, every conversation, every detail is being absorbed. His real job isn't rewriting history, it's remembering it. He watches the idiots who type their passwords in plain sight, and he files it all away. Surveillance logs, trust assessments, even locations of banned books. His mind absorbs it all. This absolute memory is a perfect cloak for a spy, but there's a deeper reason why he remains unaffected by the state's influence. That reason is Nero, a second personality born from the ashes of a hellish childhood. Nero acts as a mental shield for the fragile Kinro. He is the silent hero of the mind, a secret self living right under the supreme leader's nose. Originally, Nero shared every physical pain and drug-induced haze Kinro endured. But as time passed, a wall began to rise within his mind, slowly dividing his consciousness into two separate entities. While Kinro is lost in the fog of Lowell's brainwashing, Nero remains untouched, a silent observer in the dark. This complete mental separation isn't just a quirk. It's Nero's descent, allowing him to exist in a space that should be inaccessible to anyone who isn't fully conditioned. Behind the scenes, Nero funnels classified data to the Clark Association. He leaks warnings to artists under watch and those whose social trust is plummeting toward the lethal rank E. It's a dangerous game of shadows, done through layers of intermediaries to ensure that no one, not even a secret follower of Lowell, can trace it back to him. Is saving over 400 lives through this cycle of information a drop in the ocean or a monumental victory? Nero doesn't know. All he knows is that in this suffocating world, the cycle never ends. Argania makes strikes, protests, and secret armies impossible. Lowell's grip is simply too tight, his power too absolute. To survive here, you don't fight the tide. You learn to swim beneath it. Gazing at the portrait of the supreme leader, Nero's eyes turn cold with a resolve that Kenro could never fathom. "You contemptuous piece of shit," he whispers in the silence of his mind. "I will kill you." The waiting is over. Every piece of the puzzle is in place, and the time for half measures has passed. Nero looks toward the future, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. The moment to act has finally arrived. The gears of the rebellion are turning, and there's no going back. Elsewhere, in a crowded station under the watchful eye of a security camera, Kariya and Tsubaki blend into the crowd. They talk about something as mundane as Odin toppings, sausages, to be specific, acting like any other students, even as they move toward their target. They follow a man in a suit down the stairs, their conversation about broth flowing naturally. To any bystander, they're just kids debating food, but their eyes are focused, tracking every move of the man in front of them. Tsubaki continues her chatter, but as they pass the man, her hand moves with impossible precision. A letter vanishes from her fingers and reappears inside the man's locked briefcase with a faint ting. This is the silent power of a secret delivery. The man walks away, completely unaware that he now carries a lifeline in his bag. Kariya and Tsubaki keep their pace, not even sparing a glance back as they put distance between themselves and the recipient. They walk side by side, their footsteps echoing in sync. The mission was a success, but the tension remains visible in the way they carry themselves. Safe in a quiet park, Tsubaki finally collapses onto a bench, letting out a weary groan. No matter how many times she uses her descent, the nerves never truly go away. Kariya watches her, realizing this was the first time Nero had someone watch her work. She reveals her ability, phase shift. It allows her to teleport objects, provided they are light, under 60 grams, and within a range of just 1 meter. It's a limited power, but in the world of espionage, it's perfection. Kariya ponders the name. It's efficient, undetectable by cameras, and undeniably cool. Tsubaki notices a change in him. He seems calmer now, less like the angry boy she first met. Kariya just shrugs. He isn't always angry, just focused. Tsubaki offers him a donut to celebrate. They share a rare moment of peace, the sweetness of the food, a sharp contrast to the bitterness of their daily lives. For a second, the mission and the monster on the screen feel far away. The man they targeted was a magazine reporter whose PC is being monitored. The Information Control Bureau knows he kept forbidden article files, and the letter Tsubaki planted contains instructions on how to avoid their suspicion. It's a second chance he doesn't even know he has yet. Whether he follows the letter's advice is up to him. Tsubaki nibbles on her second donut, noting the gravity of their actions. Each letter is a gamble, a small candle lit in a world of absolute darkness. Kariya wonders if a reporter would really trust a letter that suddenly appeared in his bag. Tsubaki is confident, reporting it would only put the man under more suspicion. They've done this for hundreds of people. Some believe, some don't, but for those who do, it's the difference between life and a labor camp. Kariya finds the whole thing incredibly convoluted. Why not use the internet? Because the government sees everything. Steganography, hiding messages in image noise or video brightness, fake accounts to expose police brutality. Every digital trick has been countered. In Argania, the digital world is a trap. Nero's philosophy is simple. In a high-tech surveillance state, only analog methods can be trusted. Every digital attempt at resistance has ended in an arrest. To stay free, you have to stay offline. Stress always makes Tsubaki hungry, and she's already on her third donut. Kariya warns her about gaining weight, but his voice lacks any real bite. He's starting to understand the toll this life takes on her. Why are you involved in something like this? Kariya asks. Tsubaki seems so normal, someone whose life hasn't been ripped apart by the government. Yet, she admits that so far, her parents are safe, and she hasn't been apprehended. But normal is a relative term. She shares the moment her world shattered, the day she fell to rank C. Her best friend since kindergarten, someone she'd shared everything with, suddenly stopped seeing her. It wasn't just a loss of status. It was as if she had ceased to exist in the eyes of the person she trusted most. In Argania, ranks aren't just numbers. They're the boundaries of your humanity. Tsubaki looks down at the donut in her hands, her voice quiet but firm. She doesn't like this world, and she joined the resistance because she wanted the power to make a difference. But there's no time for self-reflection. They still have letters to deliver. Kiriya watches her, seeing the weight of her resolve as they stand up to leave. As they walk away, Kiriya's thoughts linger on Tsubaki. In this twisted society, a person who can still feel such genuine pain and hope is what qualifies as normal. And that realization is more haunting than the surveillance itself. A week passes in a world where every day feels like a countdown. Kiriya and Tsubaki move through the city, both of them wondering if normal is a ghost they'll ever be able to chase again. Then, the silence of the week is shattered. Disaster strikes in the heart of the city. A massive explosion ripples through Route F9, turning police cars and civilian vehicles into charred husks. The news reports are grim. 3 perfect police officers and 22 civilians are confirmed dead. A catastrophic incident has just redefined the city's fear. From above, the scale of the carnage is even more evident. Smoke chokes the streets as 46 more are reported injured. The cause? Unknown. Not a single trace of an explosive device was found at the scene, leaving the authorities and the people in a state of total panic. Sirens wail through the night as rescue teams pull bodies from the wreckage. The government's narrative is already forming. The surveillance cameras saw nothing, so citizens are urged to report any suspicious individuals. Amidst the flames, a child's cry for their mother is the only honest sound left. At the hospital, the horror takes a different, more systemic form. Emergency rooms are flooded with the victims of the blast, their vitals crashing as doctors race to keep them alive. But in Argania, medical care isn't about the severity of the wound. It's about the rank on your neck. Sakamaki, wearing his rank D collar, looks down at a dying patient whose life is fading fast. But he's interrupted by an order that defies all medical ethics. Leave patients with rank D for later. Is there a rank B patient nearby? This is the cold, calculated face of the regime. The nurses are horrified. The B patient isn't even critical, while the man on the table is facing cardiac arrest. But Sakamaki shuts them down with 3 words that act as a death sentence. That's the rule. In this hospital, the social trust system decides who breathes and who dies. When one nurse tries to protest, to plead for a human life, she's immediately silenced. Not by a doctor, but by the perfect police standing in the shadows. They drag her away for her heresy, leaving the rank D patient to die alone on the table. Help is a forbidden word here. The propaganda machine goes into overdrive. The government links the bombing to the murder of the police officers from weeks ago, and they offer a tempting prize. Anyone who provides information will have their social trust increased by 2 full ranks. It's a call for the citizens to turn on each other. Inside their secret hideout, Kiriya's fist slams against the desk. The news of further surveillance feels like a tightening noose. The state is using the blood on the streets to justify an even tighter grip on the survivors. Sakamaki is on edge, his voice trembling with frustration. He knows exactly what's happening. The state is using Kiriya's past actions as an excuse to choke the life out of the city. He turns to Kiriya, a dark suspicion in his eyes. "Was this you?" he asks, referring to the bombing. Kiriya's answer is cold and immediate. There's no way he could, or would, do something so indiscriminate. Sakamaki tries to stay professional, but the terror of the situation is breaking him. Tsubaki tries to calm the room, but the air is thick with distrust. Kiriya remains silent, his eyes hardening. The tension is high. Sakamaki reminds Kiriya that his dissent is powerful, but this isn't the first time things have gone wrong. Kiriya just stares back, unblinking. He didn't start this fire, but he knows he'll be the one expected to walk through it. Sakamaki covers his face, the weight of the casualties hitting him hard. He's not just worried about the organization. He's a father, terrified of the possibility that his own daughter could have been caught in the blast. For him, indiscriminate terrorism is the ultimate nightmare. That's when Nero speaks up, his voice cutting through the panic like a blade. He has a different theory. Based on how the explosion happened and the lack of surveillance footage, he suspects the truth is much darker. This wasn't an attack from the outside. It was a setup. Nero explains the chilling logic. The government staged the attack to look like a failure in their own surveillance, stirring up public fear to justify the need for more intensive control. It's a classic move. Create a monster so people will beg for a cage. A person with ties to the government carried out the attack, he concludes. In Argania, the price of freedom is death, and the government is more than happy to pay it with other people's lives. Nero warns that further surveillance policies will likely be implemented immediately. The trap is closing, and the Clark Association is right in the middle of it. The information Nero has shouldn't even exist outside of the highest government circles. The Information Control Bureau hasn't received any data on a real terrorist, because there isn't one. The secret is top level, known only to those at the very top. The plan is perfect. The perfect police will hunt for a ghost, never knowing it was a setup, while the public stays terrified. Korea calls it what it is, bullshit, but Nero just smiles. To him, it's usable bullshit. A crisis is just another word for an opportunity. Nero looks at his small team, Korea, Tsubaki, and the shaken Sakamaki. He proposes they take advantage of the state's own move. If the government wants to play a game of shadows, they'll show them how it's really done. Nero turns his focus to Korea. He mentions the upcoming Lowell ceremony in the Alpha Zone, a massive parade celebrating the leader. Korea is curious. How does Nero know about the details Tsubaki shared? But more importantly, why does it matter? The math is simple and brutal. Only Rank A citizens can pass the checkpoints to enter the Alpha Zone for the ceremony. As a Rank C, Korea is light years away from that kind of access. But Nero points to the television, where the government's latest incentive glows on the screen. Solve the bombing and leap ahead by 2 full ranks. It's a daring, deadly gamble. If Korea can unmask the culprit behind a bombing the state likely staged, he can claim the ultimate prize, Rank A. It's the only way to get close enough to kill Lowell before the regime's grip becomes absolute. Nero lays it out with chilling clarity. They're going to play the state's own game and win. Nero's resolve is set in stone. The goal is to catapult Korea all the way to Rank A by beating the state at its own game. They must find the truth behind the bombing and secure the culprit, or the scapegoat, before the perfect police can close the case. Korea listens, the weight of the mission reflected in his steady, focused eyes. The scene shifts to a high-tech briefing room. The police are dissecting the attack, which has been officially designated as Route F9. Every screen is filled with maps, thermal data, and charred remains as they try to make sense of the chaos. An officer sits in the audience, the smell of scorched blood still clinging to his uniform. He remembers the smoke, the screams, and the face of his subordinate being obliterated in the blast. He's been called to report, but what can he possibly say about an attack that defies logic? The surveillance footage projected on the wall is a mess of noise and shadows. But the analysts have found a lead, an E-rank girl who was standing at the edge of the street just moments before the world turned into fire. In Argania, being in the wrong place at the wrong rank is a crime in itself. The technical data is baffling. The explosion originated inside the patrol car's engine compartment, yet no debris from conventional explosives has been found. It's as if the fire was birthed from the metal itself, leaving the investigators with more questions than answers. This was not a normal bomb. The lead investigator's voice is grim. The pattern suggests either a complex chemical detonation or an electrically induced explosion. As they analyze the metal fragments, the silence in the room grows heavy with the realization that they are dealing with something completely new. The logic is clear. If it wasn't an ordinary bomb, it must be some kind of specialized technology. The officers look at each other, the fear of the unknown starting to seep through their professional facades. That's when the doors open, and the atmosphere changes instantly. A man enters the room, his presence command-like and suffocating. This is Weiss, a special analyst under the direct command of Lowell. His face is a map of age and cold authority, his eyes hollowed out by years of serving a heartless regime. The room falls into a dead silence as he approaches the front. Weiss wasted no time. He announces that this incident has been designated a special national security case. From this moment on, the investigation is under his absolute command. In his world, there is no room for error, only for the cold execution of the law. The officers wait, their breath held. Weiss turns his gaze toward the lead investigator, his expression unreadable. Now then, the culprit, he asks. His hand, aged and steady, rests on the table, a reminder of the power he wields over everyone in the room. When the officer admits the matter is still under investigation, Weiss's expression doesn't change, but the tension in the room triples. He looks down at the data, his mind already far ahead of the men standing before him. He doesn't want facts, he wants results. Weiss scoffs at the need for further speculation. To him, this isn't a mystery, it's a trend. And in his fanatical mind, trends are statistics, and statistics are the only proof that matters. He's already decided. The culprit is hiding among those at the bottom of the social ladder, the E rank. If there is proof, we must act without hesitation. Weiss's eyes narrow, his face a mask of zealotry. He isn't looking for a person. He's looking to purge a symptom. For Weiss, the lives of those in the E rank are just numbers to be balanced in a larger, deadlier equation. One officer struggles with Weiss's leap in logic. What's the point of an investigation if the conclusion is already decided? But as he looks around, he sees his colleagues quietly accepting the decree. The room is no longer filled with investigators. It's filled with followers. The officer feels the shift in the air. More and more of his peers are making arrests based solely on rank, using twisted reasoning that ignores any lack of evidence. He wants to speak up, to say that something is deeply wrong, but he thinks of his family and stays silent. In Argania, silence is the only way to stay safe. Weiss leans in, his voice becoming a dark sermon. He speaks of blood, of further bombings, and of more dead citizens. He uses fear as a tool to sharpen his blade, convincing the room that hesitation is the true enemy. Heretics will eventually become a problem, he whispers, his conviction absolute. To Weiss, the people at the bottom are more than just a nuisance. They're a liability, a pathogen that must be excised for the health of the society. He stares into the darkness, seeing enemies where there are only victims, his mind consumed by a mission of cleansing. He speaks of making decisions for the future. There is no doubt in his mind that the heretics are involved in the bombing. To protect the state, he believes they must eliminate all possibilities, which in his eyes means eliminating all the people who fit the profile. Then he says the words that chill the room to the bone. Execute those with an E-rank social trust, one by one. It's a decree of genocide, issued in a calm, analytical tone. The order is simple, absolute, and utterly horrific. The officer's heart hammers against his ribs. Did Weiss seriously just order an execution? He looks at the others, begging for someone to say something, but no one dares to challenge the special analyst. When he finally gulps and asks who exactly qualifies as a heretic, the room feels even colder. Weiss explains that they are taught to eliminate those who bring harm to society. Even among those with a low rank, some are considered uniquely dangerous, those who have not been fully broken by the system. These are the heretics, the sparks that could start a fire. The ambiguity of what constitutes a heretic is the point. It gives the state the power to kill anyone they choose. Weiss stands before the massive screen, a shadow against the light of the burning city, declaring that heretics are a rot that must be cut out before it spreads. Weiss reveals a deeper truth. These heretics, people who aren't completely affected by Lowell's voice, possess a power called dissent. It's why the common officers aren't taught about it. The state wants to keep the existence of such anomalies a secret, even from its own soldiers. What is dissent? Weiss defines it as a power stolen by those who have not received Lowell's favor. By revealing this secret, he's binding the officers to his cause, forcing them to choose between their humanity and total complicity in the dark deeds to come. He isn't just asking for help. He's demanding they become the very blades the state uses to cut down its own people. Weiss turns his cold, predatory gaze onto the one officer who dared to speak up, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. Why did you take this job? For what purpose? It's a direct challenge of loyalty, a warning that in the world Weiss is building, there is no middle ground. As the silence in the room stretches, the officer is forced to face the true cost of his survival. The questioning officer's answer is heartbreakingly simple: for my family. It's the same reason millions of people choose to stay silent in the face of tyranny. But in Weiss's presence, such humanity is a weakness. He ignores the man's plea and calls for a new player to enter the stage. Niru. In the shadows, a young person with dark hair and a rank A collar steps forward. Niru approaches the officer with a blank, almost bored expression. There's no anger in their eyes, only the cold precision of a weapon being unsheathed. The other officers watch in a paralyzing mix of fear and curiosity, sensing that they are about to see the true face of the power that rules their world. A hand reaches out, barely touching the officer's skin. And then the impossible happens. The man's face begins to shimmer and dissolve into fine white particles, like ash being blown away by a silent wind. This is the first horrifying glimpse of a dissent power used for destruction. The officer's last moment is one of unimaginable agony. His flesh melts away, revealing the raw muscle and bone beneath as his very existence is unmade. Niru stands before him, a silent executioner, while the man's dying thoughts, of his family, of the life he tried to protect, vanish into the void. It's a message written in blood and ash. Weiss watches the grisly display with the detached interest of a scientist. For him, this isn't murder, it's a necessary sacrifice. It's for Lowell, he whispers, his voice devoid of any warmth. To him, the destruction of a heretic, even one within his own ranks, is a holy act. Behold, this is dissent. Weiss uses the dying officer as a teaching tool for the rest of his subordinates. He declares that the Route F9 attack was carried out by such heretics, and that it would be dangerous for anyone without the Supreme Leader's favor to possess such a gift. The demonstration is over, but the terror has just begun. The decree is finalized. The public executions of all E-rank individuals are to commence immediately. It's a campaign of mass murder disguised as social cleansing. But as the police prepare to hunt the innocent, the Clark Association is preparing for their own strike. The hunt for the Route F9 bomber is on, and the winner will decide the fate of Argania.